Okay, it's now 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order if the clerk is ready.
Okay, Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry, Mayor Marlin.
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth.
Present. And I just want to point out Fred Grosser needs to be promoted as a panelist, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams. Okay, thank you.
And for the record, this is a meeting of the Cunningham Township Board for Monday, January 10th, 2022. First item is approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2021 public hearing of the Cunningham Town Board, and then the meeting of the December 13th meeting of the Cunningham Township Board. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Who was that?
Mary Alice.
Mary Alice. Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Chandra. And just to be clarified, this would be the updated minutes that the clerk's office sent out this afternoon for the public hearing. Are there any substantial corrections? Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
That motion passes. Are there any additions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public participation. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Please raise your hand. Wayne Williams has his hand up. You need to be admitted, correct, Wayne? Great. Okay. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Members of the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the committee to verify bills for the town fund and GA fund.
Good evening. This last month, we had $64,377.16 in the town fund. And we had $77,998.95 in expenditures in the general assistance fund. The total of those two numbers together equals $142,376.11. Just a few things about the bills. General assistance basically stays flat at about 64 current participants. 7 are homeless. This is down 3 from last month. As you know, this number has continued to go down as we house homeless residents with housing choice vouchers. So we're very excited about that program, and it's just been great to see those numbers go down. That is not the total number of homeless in our community. There are also folks who are on SSI or have other reasons, or McKinney-Vento Act definition homeless where they're couch surfing, but that's our general assistance roles. Our education employment track is gearing up. We started screening appointments with the first of the year to survey our participants about their interests. We're going to be connecting them to a host of programs to help them enroll, and we will pay for any fees related to those educational programs. The disability and wellness track, we've had 6 participants awarded SSI since the first of the fiscal year, July 1. 16 participants were awarded SSI, SSDI last fiscal year. So we're on track for a little bit lower than that, but we had a real record year last year. 12 residents have been helped with an intensive SOAR case management process since our program began. We had 9 applications so far that have been submitted. So, and we are helping folks in the appeals process who we have helped before. Also, part of our general assistance is we do provide transportation assistance through MTD bus passes to all participants. They started to charge fare again in July. And so year to date, we have bought 36 annual passes at $60. They went down from 80 to 60. And then 44 dash passes. We've really been pushing the dash passes because they're free for those who qualify. And we've saved the township about $2,600 using the dash passes. We also, with our general assistance participants, offer vaccination assistance. We offer $50 to any current CTSO general assistance participant who presents a complete vaccination card. That's anyone on general assistance, anyone in our emergency program, anyone in bridge to home, anybody who's working with our programs other than rental assistance, which really doesn't have a case management component. So far, about half of our participants have availed themselves of that, and we have concerns that that is not sufficient or even in line with our county. We should be closer to at least 65, 70%. So we are doing phone calls with our new intern. We have 2 social work interns who start next week, and we'll be doing phone calls and additional letter. And we are now offering $25 for every child vaccinated. So you could give 50 for mom, 50 for the other mom or dad, and then 25 per kid, just so that we can really incentivize folks to stay safe during this big spike in Omicron. Rental assistance is, we have had 6 houses supported last month. These were payments made to households that were not COVID impacted and who were homeless, but were couch surfing and needed move-in assistance. So we continue to support people in tracking and packaging their emergency rental assistance through RPC. I do want to point out a really important impact for our budget going forward. The RPC Emergency Rental Assistance Program does not currently cover any months of rent past December 2021. So we are now into January 2022, and it's the case that essentially if folks continue to be behind in rent, and we definitely will see this with massive quarantining, people being sick, off of work. If they are paid hourly, they're going to get behind, and they don't have sufficient savings, they're going to get behind on rent. So ERA, I'm meeting with our rental assistance partners because Champaign has hit into some budget walls and have reduced their payment. The county has very limited budget with RA. I don't know if they're currently distributing regular RA, and the ERA program essentially has passed in terms of you can still apply for 2020 and 2021 arrears, but you cannot apply for 2022 rental arrears. So since I wrote the supervisor's memo, I have spoken with staff. And we have basically updated the rental assistance program. This information will be updated on our website in the next 48 hours. It will also be on our updated rental assistance apps. But we expect essentially that we're going to be seeing a lot of folks who are applying for rental assistance through Township. So we essentially have changed our program such that we will provide 3 months of rent as listed on the lease. We will do that in a 12-month period. So you could get 1 month now, 1 month in July, and 1 month in December, right? Or you could take it all at once. There's not going to be a minimum income requirement. It's very hard when somebody is off for COVID or long COVID or quarantine. They can't actually show sufficient income in the time frame. And therefore we under COVID have typically not had a minimum income requirement, but we stopped doing a lot of rental assistance for the last 8 months. So as we restart, we will continue to not have any minimum income requirement for CTSO's rental assistance. The cap is 200% of the poverty level, and that acknowledges the public health crisis. We will also, with one application, ERA application, we will process ERA for RPC, and we will use that application to process for our township program. So they don't have to fill out 2 applications. They'll just fill out the ERA application. And then we're hoping that this will really help Urbana residents. I'm concerned about the county and I'm concerned about City of Champaign, but this is what we are focused on. And I, appreciate that the residents of Urbana have voted a tax levy increase so that we can take care of things like this. I will wait on my other parts of the report until reports of officers, but I just wanted to go over the highlights of the general assistance and rental assistance programs.
Any questions for Danielle? Mary Alice.
Hi, Danielle. I was looking at the bills and I was wondering if you could just let me know under the Housing Authority for Champaign, there's several items at the Angel donor expenses. I was wondering if you could provide more details.
Yep. Oh, just saw my videos on. So we regularly make payment to the Housing Authority to move general assistance resident or participants into subsidized housing. Oftentimes it's Steer Place or Washington Square. And so the rules as we have it is you cannot receive general assistance at the same time as you receive rental assistance. And yet folks need, because the Housing Authority subsidy does not cover a deposit, there's usually a barrier to people getting into housing. And so these are mostly homeless general assistance participants who we use the discretionary Angel donor funds to move them into subsidized housing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Grace.
Thank you. Thanks for the information. And I was hoping that I could just make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. The new piece you said about rental assistance was that RPC Regional Planning Commission is still doing the emergency rental assistance for 2020 and 2021, just not beyond that starting 2022. Is that correct so far?
That's correct. And I just want to be clear because it's actually not RPC's fault. It's that is essentially Congress, when they didn't authorize additional payments, there's certain constraints that come with the funding that essentially cap the eligibility to the end of 2021. So anyone who's upset about this state of affairs, you should call your congressperson and get them to pass a human services bill. Originally, there would have been money to extend this if Congress had passed both parts of the big bill. Build Back a Better bill, or whatever it's called, the BBB. So,
okay, thank you. And so there's still emergency rental assistance for the previous pandemic time, maybe regular rental assistance there, and Cunningham Township's ramping up to be able to offer 3 months in a 1-year period with no minimum except 200% the poverty line. You're saying that?
Yeah, which has been our standard for years. And that's a pretty, it's a pretty liberal number. So essentially what we're going to do, and we're definitely hearing additional phone calls asking for rental assistance. We are really deluged with requests right now for ERA and for things in 2022. So essentially we've become the COVID stopgap because of a lack of action on the level of Congress, which is what local government is supposed to be. We're supposed to fill in those gaps that the feds and the state can't fill. So we will provide that COVID response. If I had a crystal ball, I would tell you that probably there'll be another round of rental assistance, and that we may not need to, definitely do this longer than 3 to 6 months, but we're acting now so that there is kind of seamless support for Urbana residents.
Okay, and you mentioned the ERA application. Is that through the RPC website one? Also on?
Yes, but you can also get it off Cunningham Township's website. So it's in both places. And anyone who lives in Urbana, we strongly encourage that you actually submit your application through Township so that we can make sure it's complete. We can give you feedback on it if there's a signature missing or whatever, and then we hand walk it over. We print it and we keep a copy and we walk it over to, not walk, but you know what I mean, to the county clerk's office or to the to Regional Plan Commission. We essentially submit it at Brookings, and then we're able to track the status of those cases. So it's very important that Urbana residents go through us. We do not serve Champaign or Champaign County residents with this service.
Great. Thank you for clarifying and thanks for doing that important work. I know that that's definitely can be a struggle and it's a hard system to work and a lot of hoops to jump through. So I'm glad that there's some extra assistance through that and thinking about how to be preemptive in meeting that through Township when there's a higher up gap going on. I think that's all the questions for now. Thanks.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions on the town fund or general assistance? Okay, could we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the bills for, I think, December and part of January. Or are these, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
December
second.
6th through January 5th. I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Sharice, I'm here.
Okay. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wu, no, Ms. Wilkin, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next item is reports of officers. Danielle?
Yeah, so I have two pieces. One, I wanted to just highlight a few other things in the supervisor's memo, starting on page 2. And then I want to provide the mid-year financial report, which is in the packet. I just have a couple of comments on that. So first, we have 256 participants representing 142 households we've helped apply for subsidized housing. That's an 18-month. We now have worked on that for 18 months. And this is a huge part of really helping homeless residents get into housing. So that's the first point in our housing advocacy work. Pinewood, as you know, is a new 24-unit development in Urbana, specifically serving residents who are disabled and are awaiting SSI determinations, and also serves those on the statewide referral network. So we've made 12 referrals, 5 are housed, and we're continuing to work with the others to move forward. City of Champaign has referred 15 clients and 13 are housed. So if you do the math, we're at 18 and we have 6 more that we'd like to so hopefully some of our additional referrals can be housed that way. The Housing Authority received a number of vouchers for homeless and high-risk residents. We have made 37 referrals in this second round of emergency housing vouchers. They paused the referral process as they process those, and we're seeing a number of our participants get offers, and we will be helping them get locate housing and get housed. So we started a program about a year ago to pay for housewarming gifts for homeless residents moving into housing. It's funded by our Angel Donor Fund. 25 homeless households have received the housewarming gift. And it's, it basically gives people vouchers to purchase furniture and housewares at Salt Lake and Habitat for Humanity. Bridge to Home, I wanted to just give a little bit of more in-depth update. So essentially Bridge to Home now is the kind of umbrella term that we use for our continuum of services for the homeless. This now includes street outreach, emergency housing, tenant-based rental assistance. So that would be rapid rehousing, vouchers that are paid for through Township, and then support accessing market rate and subsidized permanent housing. And all of this comes with housing stabilization services. We have about $310,000 from the state of Illinois. For this, it's fiscally sponsored by the city of Urbana. So essentially, we have pivoted this program and we've gotten verbal approval for using the funds in this way, and we've begun to expend them a couple of months ago when we got the verbal approval. So Street Outreach launched last summer when See You at Home closed its services or paused for several months. We are now actively working with 36 people who are sleeping outside this was the number essentially of the, I shouldn't say now, this is the number of people we have worked with in the last 2 months during this ESG activation time. We don't have very many people actively unsheltered. We helped to launch the town board approved funding, and we helped to launch a low barrier shelter. That shelter opened on the 27th. You can see the press release at the end of the supervisor's memo. And that essentially provided a place for folks who are dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues to safely sleep at night. We do have a couple of folks who are actively sleeping outside because they don't want to be separated. So it's usually a situation of couples who do not want to go into the shelter. That program is going very well. I'm the chair of the steering committee of that program, and I receive regular updates on incident reports and number of people housed so that I can see what the service needs are. I also get the names of the people being served, and it's a lot of our people. It's a lot of the Cunningham Township participants who we were working with street outreach. So our outreach workers we were closed over the holidays, but our outreach workers continued to work, and they helped to get people into housing, let them know the day it opened, reached out, went under the viaduct, went into the parks, and helped people get over to do intake and check-in. So that is a huge success story. We've gotten a lot of folks, basically into a safer sleeping arrangement that way. Emergency housing, we do offer short-term emergency housing. This is outside of our emergency family program. So these are for single individuals. The primary housing needs that we have responded to are medically fragile people, including folks just out of the hospital. And we've housed several folks who have COVID. We've sometimes transferred them to public health, or public health is sometimes needed to transfer them to us. So essentially we are trying to make sure that we can support that quarantine process. We have 6 residents in December. We had 6 residents sheltered in hotels. It said 2 moved into low barrier shelter, but actually at this point, all 6 have. We had 5, and then we had 1 unplanned exit. And then we do a 12-month rent subsidy for literally homeless families who are referred by centralized intake for the homeless. We have 6 active households. We're about to have a 7th. 5 of them are single males. 1 is a married couple with no children. And 4 of those households are in housing and working or actively looking for employment. Then we have our emergency housing program for Urbana families. And we have served to date 37 households, 40 adults and 52 children. Every single resident who moved in to the new properties in August has transitioned into their own independent living situation, except for 1 family with a domestic violence transition. So last month we served 4 households. We had 1 new family move in. And Empty Tune helped us with Christmas gifts and gift cards. We appreciate that. We continue to track evictions. We're in the courthouse each month. You can see the numbers essentially for first appearances. So the total first appearances since we started in October is about 300 people. This is countywide. That said, I want to be clear that that does not mean that 300 people were evicted. In fact, our case manager estimates that about 50% of the people who come to court actually have an active rental assistance application. And when that's the case, the judge will refer the landlord and the tenant to do mediation and attempt to work it out without an eviction. I'm not saying it happens in every case. And certainly there are times when people don't have applications in, they weren't able to get in, or they were not aware. But it is the case that we're seeing about 50% have applications in, and then the judge typically will refer them to mediation. Utility support, we saw a huge spike in utility requests at the end of the year. It was most in this just the last few weeks. We had 8 households help last month. We were We saw 15, I guess I should say, of the 2 weeks we were open, we had the 8 households, but it was a larger number of requests than we've seen in that short time frame. We've helped 108 households since the program start, 83 this fiscal year. We continue to refer people to RPC's LIHEAP and COVID relief for water and sewer assistance. We have a digital inclusion campaign, and you can see 113 phones, 18 internet benefits, and 12 laptops or tablets distributed, most of that in the last 3 months. We have canceled our independent media center, warm homes, and smartphones because of the COVID transmission. So we'll keep working with people one-on-one, but we don't want to gather people at this point. Bucket Brigade, we have now made 1,743 deliveries to 5,118 people. And we're averaging about 14 households, Urbana households a week. You can only get it once every 2 weeks. And it's basically 2 weeks of provisions, pantry staples. And then in the warmer months, actually, we have had some greens from Sola Gracia's, their greenhouse. We continue to request winter items. So if people have new socks or gently used and clean coats, hats, mittens, and gloves, please drop them off at Township in the bin out front. And we are holding a virtual retreat for our Solidarity Gardens partners January 29th to plan the growing season. I just had a couple, let me pause and see if you have any questions about the supervisor's memo, and then I will give a brief update on our financial report, mid-year financial report.
Grace.
Thanks again for the update. I was just wondering, for utility support, is the best thing for people to still reach out to Cunningham Township directly if they're an Urbana resident for utility support, or is there also a county initiative?
Yeah, so LIHEAP continues, as does the water and sewer assistance. And really our program is for anyone who doesn't qualify for other programs. So if they contact us, we're gonna have them apply to those other programs first, unless they are shut off or they have an imminent shut off, in which case we pay. And that is for countywide. Our funders have been countywide, and they requested that we support people countywide, and we're happy to do that. So we prevented quite a few shutoffs. The numbers I gave you are essentially shutoff preventions, and it's pretty impressive that, you know, since July we prevented 83 shutoffs throughout the county.
Okay, so people should contact RPC about LIHEAP stuff first.
Yep.
And then if they don't qualify or there's still gaps or stuff not covered, then contact Cunningham Township if they're a Urbana resident, right?
Actually, if they're a Champaign County resident.
Oh, anywhere in Champaign
So
County.
yeah, it's a little confusing, but it depends on the funding source. So for our homeless services, we are now countywide as long as the state funds us. And for our utility assistance, we are countywide. Everything else is Urbana based.
Okay, thanks.
Mary Alice.
Thanks for the report, Danielle. I noticed that you included some of this fiscal year, so I appreciate that update in the report. I was wondering if you had any sense in your street outreach. You mentioned that there are some couples that didn't want to be separated. Are there other individuals who decide not to participate? Do you have any idea of the percentage of people who decide not to participate?
I don't have a percentage, but essentially I think the last report of people that we were aware were actively unsheltered, sleeping outside was 3. One couple and a single individual who was ejected from the shelter after a fight. But then the policy of the shelter is actually that they may be able to come in the next day. There has to be a review by a case manager. But that's the only folks that I'm aware of. That's not to say that it kind of depends on the temperature. When it's really cold, some people will go to the low barrier shelter. And then of course there are folks who are in abandoned buildings throughout the community, and the other cars and storage units. Those are basically some of the places that people may choose to stay. But that's all that we are aware of. And that, that's a huge success because that was a squeaker getting the lower barrier shelter open. So
Thank you. Any other questions on this part of the report? Okay. You want to move on to the financial?
sure, and I will be brief. I just want to point out a few things. So essentially, when I budget, I budget 10 to 15% over so that there's wiggle room. We're spending on target. We're at 40%, so we're actually underspending budget by a little bit. There's a few places where I imagine that will change in the second half of the year. You'll notice we're under on health insurance, on FICA. Our audit estimate came under. There's COVID related unders like training, travel, and events are obviously under. Our building repairs maintenance is at 75%, but a lot of that is one-time installations. We put our security system under that, and proactive attempts to address some deferred HVAC maintenance. So we actually had a person go through and look at and assess the HVAC and do some tune-ups. So I think I actually expect that, we may be over a little bit on that, but not by much. We have underspent on general assistance. The job market's been very active, and we've had a record number of participants get on SSI in 2021. We also allocated generously for the sign item, not knowing what the impacts of COVID would be. We are expanding this program to do specific outreach to young adults and encourage them to get paid while training for work. We tend to serve, our average age is, I think, 47 for general assistance. And there's a lot of young people who maybe are out of work or in transition who could be taking advantage of our employment and education opportunities track. So we're doing some work there. With rental assistance, I think we're going to go from famine to feast. Basically, I just think we're going to see a lot of rental assistance payments for 6 months. So we are under budget on that because ERA exists, but we most likely will see some big expenditures, especially now that we're paying out 3 months of rent. Utility assistance and angel donor funds, you'll see that we have definitely gone over in both. And you will also see that the income, which is from private donors, has kept up with, it is also over budget. So essentially, we still have $21,000 in the angel donor fund as of last Wednesday. So that's, that's not a ton. I would like to see it larger because, utility shut off bill could be $1,000. But I think it's fine. And so we can go over as long as we don't spend any, for angel donor and utility assistance, we don't spend more than private donors have given us. And so far we have not run out. So knock on wood, we're doing okay. Also, there's some expenses under angel donor that will actually be paying out of by the SG funds. We still are working on moving those items over and requesting reimbursement. Let's see, I think ESG expenses are going to ramp up this second half. We, as I mentioned, we're housing medically fragile individuals or those exposed or with COVID. And our emergency housing voucher program is really slowing down, the housing authorities program. So we anticipate that we'll see more people in rapid rehousing. So I feel very comfortable with the financial report. I was worried that we would be over at this time. I think that it's great that we're under. And I think from an assistance perspective, spring is going to be harder than fall because frankly, there's just not the federal assistance that we had in the fall. And it's, and the local governments are going to have to pick up those pieces. So I'm glad that we are able to do that with some surplus in this first half of the year. Happy to take questions.
Chris.
Yeah, Danielle, thanks for the report and all the information. I guess some people listening to this might wonder, and correct me if I'm wrong, but RPC gave us a presentation where they said that last year they got $6 million and this year they're going to get $7 million. So I guess I don't understand why they can't provide rental assistance in the year 2022 if they've got $7 extra million.
It depends on the constraints of the funding. It's totally absurd. They do not have a money problem. They have a policy that comes with the money problem. So I hope, and certainly people should advocate, including elected officials, should advocate to make sure that we've got the dollars, let us spend it for 2022. So there needs to be some level of authorization. Again, I'm going to meet with the rental assistance partners on January 18th so that I can get better information from RPC about what they see is on the horizon, what constraints they're under, and any points of leverage that we have to help them be able to spend this money in 2022. There is a lot of money, and we still need to distribute it. In the meantime, people should, if you're in Urbana, go ahead and apply. If you're behind, talk to Township, and they can, RPC can then help take care of 2021, and we can help take care of some of 2022.
And you're saying again that the restraints, the restrictions are at the federal level?
What I'm going on is what RPC director, the community development director, told me is essentially it's not related to internal or local policy. So again, as soon as I have more information, I will share it. And certainly I think there's several folks here who serve on RPC board, and asking about that would be helpful.
Thank you.
We can follow up when we meet. Also, after you meet with the rental assistance partners, it would be helpful if the group could put together a template or talking points for people to use in writing a letter to congressional representatives. It would help a lot. So we all have the same information and the accurate information.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
Okay, Mary Alice.
So Chris, the second funding round was in October, and it was for 2021. It wasn't for 2022. At least that's the information that RPC was given. And there's usually a report that it's given, I think the next meeting is the 28th, which will tell us exactly how much of those funds have been spent.
Thanks, Mariel.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Wayne Williams.
I don't have anything in officers.
Okay. Is there any unfinished business? None? We have one item of new business, which is resolution number T 2022-1-001R. Resolution authorizing the Cunningham Township Assessor to sign a contract with Pictometry International Corporation for ConnectView Web Visualization offering.
So what this resolution is a resolution that would allow me to put the pictometry imagery on our website. It will allow for the public to have access. They wouldn't have access to the measurement tools, but they would have access to the imagery. Do you guys have any questions? And I sent you links to various counties that already do this. Most of the counties they work with already do this. So if you have any questions, do you have any questions?
We'll take questions first, and then we'll have a motion to get this on the floor for discussion. Mary Alice.
So Wayne, thanks for sending those links to the other communities. I did take a look at it, and one of our concerns originally was just the level of detail that you can see. And I zoomed all the way in, and it gets very pixelated. So it's really kind of a view from above, so to speak. So you can't see into the houses, just so the public knows. It's difficult to get those kinds of details from the images that would be posted online. I guess my only question is, you had mentioned that they were going to include it in our contract, so the total amount that you're asking for is zero. Rather, you're asking for the contract to be signed. And I noticed in the contract it said that, if I'm reading the correct line, it's usually costs $750. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if we wanted to continue it, it's unknown in terms of whether or not they would include it in the amount that we already pay for.
That's correct.
Okay. And then it would be the length of time that it would be up on the web, because it would be hosted from their website. It's not going to be hosted from the data won't be housed and hosted on our website. Is that right?
Right. It'd be like a click-through link.
Right. So, and the timeline for it to be published?
We could probably do it as fast as 30 days. It depends on, so we already have a website, the assessor's office. So it really just depends on, there's something called an API that
Sure.
needs to be implemented.
Needs to be connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
And however long that takes, that's something that our web developer would have to do. So, assuming that, we would just get in line in his queue and whenever you can get to it, but he assures me that it wouldn't take that much time.
Okay. And then how long will it, if we sign this contract, how long will it be up so that the public knows?
A year.
From whenever we put it on, or from the time that you sign?
It would be a year from about, January 15th, I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Grace.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could clarify, I think you've already have a bit, but just to clarify for everyone too, you said that the kind of allowable uses policy that we drafted and any other legal stuff would be probably like a pop-up agreement window, like some of those other counties have that you sent us. Is that right?
Right. So what the plan would be is to, when you click through to have it'll be like an allowable use click through. So kind of like when you already go to our website, there's a disclaimer whenever you look up a property. So to be something similar to that.
Okay. And I don't know if you did or if we could share that draft with the whole town board just for interest.
Sure.
Or whenever it's up. I mean, you send us the draft then too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, can we get a motion, please?
I'll move to approve resolution number T 2022-1-001R, resolution authorizing the Cunningham Township Assessor to sign a contract with Pictometry International Corp. for Connect View web visualization offering.
I'll second.
Moved by Grace, second by James. Is there any further discussion? Sharice.
I guess what I want to know is why would, can you give me some examples of why anybody would need to have this information?
So the county already provides orthogonal imagery from their flights. And basically what this would add is oblique imagery from our sites. This is technology that we spent quite a bit of money procuring over the last several years. So it's just a matter of making what we spent a considerable amount of money more publicly accessible.
Okay.
James. James.
Yeah, I want to thank Wayne for bringing this to us. We're investing quite a bit of the public's money into getting these images and making it available to the public so they can benefit from it as well as an appropriate thing to do. I know that, I don't know what they're going to do ongoing, but $750 per year does not seem like a high amount to pay for this. And it's good that we're getting it for free the first time around.
Grace.
Thanks. And just wanted to say thanks to Wayne and William for meeting to discuss the draft for allowable uses. I appreciate that that got in there and appreciate your time with that. And also appreciate that the public could have access to this. Trying to think of like useful examples, but it sounds like we talked about for general assessment or planning, possibly building purposes. I guess we're beyond questions, but are those kinds of things that the public could find this useful for?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's all. So yeah, thank you.
Any other question or discussion? Okay, could the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Quisenberry. Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Wu.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
And with no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, this meeting is adjourned.